Okay, I've got some voice, so I think we're ready to record. I'm starting about 9 minutes early. It's 5:51, and we'll probably have some folks on the back end of this. It's such a pretty day. Beautiful day. I can understand why some of you, or maybe all of you, might not even show up, but hopefully I'll have a few people here. This is just some housekeeping stuff I want to make sure everybody is on top of. You should have uploaded Lunch's database 4, 5, and 6. Those are due today. And as I come down here, then also we go back to week 6, and you're going to have, let's see, you don't have anything due in week 6. And then we'll have spring break, which is the 22nd. And no class then, and then on the 29th, you'll have lunches 7, 8, 9. Those will be due. Now, I want you to note something. I've got a file here that you can use it for lunches 10, 11, or 12, or you can go along and work with me as we do it, okay? So we're here on week 5, and this, of course, again, I'm about 8 minutes early. So I'm sure I'll have some people come in. I may not, but we'll see what happens. But I have some real-world examples of folks that make extensive uses of databases, and I try to kind of find a theme every time I do it. And this week we're really talking about disaster relief. And here's a link over to the International Red Cross. Okay. And as you can see, as we come in here to the website, literally we're looking at a form that lets us generate queries. And if we're interested in news and media, getting involved, notice we even have drop-down menus that guide us. And so if you've had this course, you should never look at a website again while understanding that it is essentially a database, and you just simply drill down to find out what you want, okay? And in addition, they have just incredible sets of resources. This is the International Red Cross, the International Federation, of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies. Of course, Red Crescent works with folks who are Muslim, and then Red Cross for the people who are Christians. So that's one resource I wanted to alert you to, but again, to show you how we use this concept of a form to input data. And so you'll see this, and this really is to pull data from their database and then present them as necessary. Now, I'm going to click that off for a minute and go back. And we have also, let's go back down here. I got a little bit ahead of ourselves here. That's okay. This is the Global Risk Information Platform. And this is a database, okay, that's supposed to tell us where there are problems. We'll click home on that, okay. And, well, I guess they have, I guess that has changed. So we'll go back. Oh, it's another one I'll have to take out. And this is a data.gov disaster-related tools and updates. And again, using a database to get things found. And here you can see all the data sets that they have available, and in several formats. And these are all collected by the federal government. And you can see, the data sets and what they've got in terms of topic categories, all kinds of information. In fact, they tell you that 110 data sets. And so again, this idea of using a database, and these are for dealing with disasters. Again, we're using the database concept. And you see, you and I are used to working up with the GRAD GUI, i.e. the graphic user interface, and that's not what we're working with there. Now, this is a disaster response wiki. Okay, and basically they will tell you what's going on there in terms of just all types of information. And you know, it's like any wiki, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but it will usually lead you to some places where you want to go. And so I would really encourage you to take a look at that. And a wiki is really nothing more than a form that just allows people to come in and put data in and then go and pull it out. So I wanted you to see those. Okay, and then we have a Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. This is part of the North American Mission Board. Okay, and this is from the Southern Baptist and the disaster relief they work. In fact, the former disaster relief director for the Oklahoma Baptist General Convention is now, if I'm not mistaken, the head of the Southern Baptist Relief Organization. And Southern Baptists go anywhere and everywhere they can get to help out. And this is from the North American Mission Board. And again, you can see it is basically a database with drop-down menus. And it's very, 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 very well done. And a way to connect with people. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, during the tornado in 2013, the first people on the spot were the folks from the Oklahoma Oklahoma BGCL, Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, their disaster relief team, and then the Southern Baptist Relief Team came up there the next morning, and it was really incredible. They were as well done and put together as anybody. Of course, I've got a few of us coming in. You can double back on the front end. I've been going about 5 or 10 minutes. Just some housekeeping stuff. That's about it. Now, I always like to bring these in so you can see the ways, you know, why this technology is so useful. And we went over and took a look at the IFRC, which is for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. And again, when you go in there, what you should now see, having had this far in the course, is a form where you input data. Okay, a form where you select data and drill down and procure the information and data you want, and away you go. It's the same with it's the same with this disaster release wiki. It's an open source. You got people from all over doing that. And this is the data government portal, data.gov portal, which is really, really, really useful. I know because I've used it. And this is the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. I think I mentioned before, the guy who was head of the BGCO's disaster relief is now head of the Southern Baptist Relief, which is part of the North American Mission Board for the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, here's BGCL, and we'll take you over there. And again, a database. The thing that was so very impressive is they were on the spot. The people, the BGCL, their team was on the spot up at First Church Moore, which is where they did the triage. They were there by 8 o'clock, I think. And by the next morning, they're at full blast running. They were running, serving hot meals. They were helping us organize the church in the first floor so we could store things and keep things. What would people need? They helped us in terms of figuring out how to align people. We had both parking lots, with front parking lot full with nothing but insurance companies. These folks, I think FEMA was on the east side of the church, but they were incredibly helpful, and in terms of getting us contacts. And the people at Walmart, their folks up there, incredible folks. They sent us a list of what people would want on day 1, day 2, day 3, and so as folks brought stuff in, and it's hard to understand, the generosity of the American people. They're incredible, and people were just hour and a half to 2 hours. They were bringing canned goods, shoes, but that all has to be organized in a way, that people need them. And on the first day, the type of food people need, if they're out there doing relief, is they need high energy food. So that was one of the things that we were trying to cull through and get that information and get those items and literally get everything lined up in order so people could come in on the east side of the building, go through that area, and then go through our big community room and go out the west door or traverse back and go home or go to the site wherever they were. Of course, the insurance people were there as well. So the BGCO, as I think I'd said, the guy who was head of them is now head of the Southern Baptist Mission, and you couldn't have a better person running it. But again, this is a database, okay? And it's meant to augment you and I getting information that we might need. And each of these are queries. They've got some tweets, okay? And again, just a great tool to use. And of course, then when you mix that with their ground-based people, they're just unreal. They do a lot of training there in Oklahoma City. So I wanted to show you that the databases are of profound importance, and folks like these are always looking for people who can come to work for them and help out. I wanted also to show you again. Here's a link, and this is from the Center for Data Innovation, and trying to use big data to help mesh with some of the disaster relief that's going on, and that can run the gamut from reports of damage, what's going on. It's just, again, it's an open source, and so you've got all this information that gets poured in there, and it's a way to put things on a more macro basis. It's just hard unless you've been through it to understand how discombobulating it is to go into a street and there's no street sign, there's nothing standing, it's all gone. You have no idea. And the only way that people could figure out where they were was using GPS and then some maps. A lot of Google Maps pull up to say here's before or here's after. But this is a great site, and I would certainly encourage you to explore it. And I want to make sure that you understand that these tools, we use them for more than just selling stuff to people. We use them to help out. You cannot, if you don't know where the gas lines are in the disaster situation, you're in big trouble. And I'd say this also, all of the companies involved, utility people, the natural gas, OG&E, people like that were unbelievable in having everything pinpointed and knowing, going into a house that was about half down and seeing if the gas was spewing. Just an incredible amount of work. I also wanted to show, and I think I've got a couple of other resources. Again, you can take your time and go out and look at them. And got a little bit ahead here of myself. And this is, I believe, from Esri, the compilation they have. They're a company out in California. They do all the mapping. I believe this is what this is. Yeah, and this is this PDF. It contains just, I think, more like a list or a compendium of all of the disaster relief organizations that are out there and what they do. I'll see if we can look. I should download this thing and then opened it up, but we'll zing along with it. it's going to continue to creep like that, I may just go ahead and download it. But again, it's another resource, and I want to show you. But again, these help us with recovery efforts, and this is a case study for local government first responders. Okay, and they put you through. They provide all of that information. So folks that go into training for this stuff, this is some of the material that they use. Okay. And for example, they're talking about something here called a common operational picture. All right. And at one level, what that means is, well, in the mortar, for example, you had damage, you had destruction epicenter, and then you had just layers where, and you get to a point where maybe you had some shingles knocked off, stuff like that. My house, we've moved since we were on Southwest 28, and the back of our house, it looked like someone had taken a piece of steel and literally in the back of our house, and brick house, had just drawn a line through it. I was so shocked at the power of the thing, and I was finding stuff for months after when I would mow it. There would be something, and some kind of terrible things too. And then as you got out away from that, it was less. But the damage in epicenter was just unbelievable. And what they had to do was to go in and construct. What are we looking at? And the first was to get everything passable. Deal with. I mean, they had a whole process to go through. So when we have these disasters like this in the United States, yeah, we're pretty well, we're in a place to construct that, a place to deal with those kinds of situations. And again, these are a series of case studies that were written up and provided for people in their training. And this is a very, 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 very good tool. So, again, I can't emphasize how important these things are, because these are for great operational importance, as well as, I want to sell you books, or I want to sell you stuff online, that type of thing. A database, is a way to not only is also a way to archive things and to know what you needed. And I've mentioned that we called Walmart and we talked to their regional representative, and he sent us a list, and it was a list of what people were going to need on day 1, day 2, day 3, and what to look out for. And the only way we would have known that, or they could have told us if they've been through these enough, that they know what people need. In fact, when hurricanes are coming into the United States, Walmart already starts loading trucks and loads those trucks according to what will be the needs locally. It's unbelievable. And again, it's really, really hard to tell you, but these tools can be used for some great purposes. Now, this week, or I think last week, I'll go over here to the announcements, I'd also given you some supplemental things to look at. This is from a course I took at Penn State on the geospatial revolution, and they've since released it out here, but it would be to your advantage to take the time and just look at it, okay? Because you're going to see all the ways that mapping and cartography are almost in a renaissance, for the simple reason that with databases, we can take a map and layer and layer and layer and then drill down on it. And again, these episodes tell you the story. In fact, I'm not sure how many episodes are out there, I wanted to just kind of supplement what we did on the first, but it certainly is worth your while. And I know that Esri, ESRI, they offer a lot of free courses for people who want to learn about how you use location advantage, how you can build location tech, use their tools to look at locations, all types of uses you wouldn't even imagine. So, I think I want you to see this, so that you understand that the technology we have can really augment some excellent results. And I think if you go to YouTube, I may have this, but I think there was one episode where maybe it's this episode where they had enclaves. All of you are kind of too young to remember it, but they had enclaves of Serbians, Bosnians, Muslims, Christians in that country, and they're all trying to get that all figured out and get that mess sorted out, because what was happening was basically both sides are engaging in genocide. They were trying to kill everybody. Called it ethnic cleansing, and the United States government stepped in and did as well as the United Nations, and put a stop to it. To get to the peace treaty, they had to work with maps and redraw maps. And so I think that it's either episode 4 or 5 that covers that. So I always want you to know there's a real practical use for these things. And if your comfort level as it grows with these is very, very important. Well, again, we've done a little bit of housekeeping, and tonight we're going to look at chapters 7, 8, and 9, okay? And we're going to have, and as we move through some of these chapters, there will be some selected types or selected files that we'll work with. And I want to show you what I mean. Let me go back to the modules, excuse me. And I'll hit the welcome module here. And this, of course, okay. And as we scroll down, you're going to see, and also in the files, you will see some things like lunches database 7 done, okay? Now we're going to work on 7 tonight, but I'm going to make that visible to you in the event that something happens. But so you can also see some work we did with just selected sets of code there, and we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll go through the chapter, and I'll have that there so you can take a look. Lunches database 8 and 9, and so each of these chapters I try to be a little more selective as opposed to just march through one by one. Let's go ahead and download that one, this LVD 7. Okay, and it should be showing up for you, is it? Yeah, you see that LBD7? Look on your machine if you're logged in. Do you have it? Yeah, it's up here in this welcome and resources. Yeah, in the modules. Now, I'm just going to download. Okay, and we'll take a look at it. Chapter 7 deals with formats, sequences, and indexes. And we've talked quite a bit about indexes, so I don't know that we need to cover all that much. But what's important here is formatting. And so I have some selected cases here for you. And as you scroll down, you want to make sure that you can start with the queries. And you can see I was kind of building along there. And here's query 718, number 3, number 4. I worked through several of these because they've got some use. They have a little bit of usefulness for us in terms of working with the code. Now, that being said, if you want to go over in the files, okay, and I'm going to diminish this for a second, and you want to go to the Access SQL, you can go to chapter 7, okay, and then you can just simply, if you've saved it to your desktop, just throw it back on your device, and that'll be the access for chapter 7. And then, download SQL Fun, and you can import and do what you want to do. Now, I wanted to show you these, and I'm just going to walk us also through the book. So you really ought to have your book with you when we go through this. Page 250, excuse me. We're looking at taking a table, okay, and pulling some data from it and formatting the data as such that we get the date, the hour, the minute, etc. And you can see the beginning table, okay, and you can see the result table. Now I'm going to open up that chapter 7 code I have down here. All right, and this is the first one. This is 7.2. All right, and I'm gonna font this up a bit. Pop up the font on it so we can see a little bit better. Now, here's what we've got. We have a selected. This is from page 250 and 251. We've got a selecting. We have a select query, and we're going to get the following fields. We've got those listed, and then you see we have the format. Okay, that term, and then we have the hire date, and then in those single quotes is the format that we want, and we're going to call it as formatted data. So we're using an alias, column alias, and then we're formatting that column as well, and we're going to get it from this table, the employees table, and we're going to order it by ID. Now sometimes the format function in Access plays naughty, so I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go here and click create, and we'll go into the query design. Okay, and we'll go back down to the SQL view. Excuse me, and let's see what we get. And there we are. Now, so what we've got going on, we've got the employee first, we have the employee ID, excuse me. Okay, and we have their first name, and then we have their hire date. Okay, and then the formatted date, which shows us the day, the time, the month, the day, the year, and the time. So this is a way that we timestamp data or records. Okay, this could be anything like people using their password. This could be people accessing or entering data, say on a sale. But the authors wanted us to see that we can format data in this manner. And as you pop on over, where is all that set of information? I want to show that to you. Excuse me. It's over on, if you go take a look at page 248, you're going to see Oracle and Access date formats. And if you go to page 249, so by the time you're finished, your eyes will be in the back of your head because you're going, I didn't know I could make a date look like that. They have all these different formats, okay, and they give you a comment which tells you what it is, okay. So you've got some examples there, and very candidly, it's nice, it's useful. Again, it's the level of specificity you want or how it looks, and I'm just not all that hooked up about date formatting. And we can see the result table over here on the top of 251. Now we have a couple of things that are not good, and I want to go back down because now I've got something that's kind of got me interested. I have Carol. I have an anomaly here. I have a Carol, and I don't have a hire date. I don't have a formatted date, and I have Susan with zero data, and John. And I'd want to go back and say, okay, let's go to the design view on this thing and take a look at it. There's the table. Okay, and I got the employee ID in ascending order. I got their first name. I've got their hire date, and then you'll notice, okay, I have the formatted underscore date, and then we invoke the format clause in there, and that gives us that in month, day, year in 4 digits, the hours and the minutes, I believe, and then whether it's AM or PM. Yeah, and hours and minutes. So we ask ourselves, why do we get the anomaly? Why didn't we have the data? So that would be something we would want to take a look at. But if you want to date and timestamp it, you can. There's not all that big deal to it. So, you know, we'll close it. Yes, and I'm going to call it 7-2 and see if that's going to work. Like I said, the authors, oh, it already exists. Okay, well, I'll do this. I'm just going to change it to TWO. All right. Now, as we scroll through here, I want to also take a look at some more of these. And as you can see, I've done some playing around with these a little bit. And let's take a look over on page 73, pardon me, page 252 at the very bottom is 7.3, okay? So we'll just open this up, and here it is, okay? And sometimes it's useful to run these. You can paste them in and run them if you care to. But if you understand what's going on, you can. Now, here's what we've got. We're going to insert this. This is an insert statement into this table, the C3OC lunches, and we're going to have the following values, 25, and then we're going to put the pound sign around the date. You say, what's the point of that? Well, when we invoke the values clause, okay, then the machine says, all right, I want a value. In other words, I want usually a number. And then we put the date inside of a hashtag, and it generates that format for us. So the machine sees a number, but we're to see the date. And then 202, and then we use the now function, okay, which just gives us the current date. And so that's 7.3, and they show us the beginning table, pop page 253, and then they don't give us the result. Yeah, they do. Give us the result table, the new row that's created from that there in page 253. Now you say this is a bit of work to think through, okay, and add this into a table. Why wouldn't I use a form? And I rest my case. I'm going to spend more time doing this. Now, if I have the form, if I have a table, and I create that table to populate things in a certain way and format, I might as well use it. But this and the author again is old school and wants you to see how would I do an insert, okay? And if you look there at the beginning at the new row on page 253, you're going to see it. The 25th, that's a value. The 5th of December 2011, okay, that's stuck in there. And we've got then 202, okay, and then we've got the now, and that was when he ran it June 2011, June 17th, and we've added to that table a little bit more work. And then he says, let's see the table. So here in 7.3, the second part, we're just going to select everything from that table. That's all that's going on. 7.5 is again that issue of formatting. Formatting is important because it's how I display something, and I want to make sure of two things. First of all, that there's a firm connection between what I display, okay, and what's inside the equation bar, or what's inside is in the query down in the design view. And number two, I want to make sure it communicates to the end user. It's something that's meaningful for them. Otherwise, I've wasted their time and mine. And here we're looking at phone numbers, and basically this is, okay, we're going to use it, and we're going to have these kind of digits, okay, where we're going to put in the last 4 digits on that phone number, okay? And this is going to be pulled from the employees A table. That's 7.5. And the result table over on page 256 will show you we get the employee ID. There's that field. And then there's the first name field. Okay. Then there's the last name field. Okay. And then we do a format with that where we put the number in 415. Okay. And then the 643. And then we use the characters there. Okay. And we call that as phone number. And we got that as phone number. And that's pulled from that employees table. We put these at signs as kind of a placeholder, all right, for the data, somewhere to put them. And that's the result set that we get. That's at the top of 7.5.
So if we, for example, had phone numbers that didn't have those same first 6 numbers, could we just use at signs for all the numbers?
Well, so you're talking about the first 7 digits? Or because you got 7 digits there. 4 of them are formatted. Yeah, you see, there's 4 of these,
right?
And then you've got this digit here. Okay.
Like for example, people like phone numbers were from just like all over the states and everything. So could you use at signs for each of the numbers in the whole?
You could, but you're probably inviting more of a mess than you want, okay? Again, you'll hear me say this is why God created forms. and so that the data are inputted. When you create a form effectively, okay, and you do, for example, what we call an input mask, that it takes care of those kinds of issues. But again, yeah, sure, you could do it. Now, what it will look like or what you'll get is a whole nother matter. So let's take a stab at that, and I'm going to take these 3 out. I'm going to put the at sign, so I'll find my shift, and wherever the at sign is at on here. There it is. Okay, and let's see what happens. We're not going to break the machine. And let's have fun with queries. All right, click create and query design. I'll close it with SQL and boom. And we'll run it and see what happens. See, we've got, oh, that's my fault right there. I have that little initial there. So let's see what we get now. We may get an error. It may run. So there's still, you got the area codes, because their area codes are all 415, but you've got these phone numbers. Now let's squidge this out. Okay, I know it's a little nonsensical. Okay, what we don't have are the prefixes for the numbers. Okay, this chapter I go through fast because it's designed to frustrate anybody and everybody who tries to work with formatting. I mean, when you look at the table back there and the formats, and there's 35 or 40 different formats, you go, I don't know about this. Okay, so let's go back down to the SQL view, and I think these are all like, what were they, 634 or something like that? I don't know. I'll put that in there. And we'll run that, see what we get. Here we are. And you say, what just happened there? Well, okay. You go to the bottom page 256, okay, and look at the code. Now, you're going to see he has a little notation there after that line of code. It starts with format, okay? And over on note 2, it says access SQL, the same format as using the GUI. Difference is that it's placed in the second parameter with parameter. When you open up a table and you see those at signs, those are open characters, okay? Meaning a string. which could be numbers, letters, spaces, exclamation points, whatever. And it just said, okay, what's in there? And it said, I've got this number of 3484. Okay, great. Let's just pull it out. And there we are. Now, when we put in when we substituted the 3 digits of the area code, okay, with the @ signs, we confused the machine. It's going, huh? Now, if we had some different zip codes in there, it might work. But I'd say if you have a form created like you want to, it's probably better. In fact, if you look there at 255, right above that function, you'll see where they show you how to do that, how to put that together in the GUI. You say, now, okay, what do we mean? Well, let's click on something for a minute. Let's click on tables. Let's put all access objects. All right, and so let's go up here and we'll find the table and click on foods, for example. All right. And then let's go down to the design view on foods. All right. And I'm going to come down to just see. I'm going to add a field called phone. Okay. And that can be, and I'm going to make a strategic decision. Is this a number? Is it short text? Is it long text? What am I dealing with? Okay, and so I'm going to treat it as a number. This may be a mistake, but I'm going to say okay. Now notice it says okay, we're doing long integers. I can short that if I want. But come down and click on input mask. You see that down there? And come all the way across, and you're going to see a little blue dot with 3 infinities. And I'm going to press the input mask. Only with text. Okay. Well, let's put that with text then. I'll go back and try it now. Input mask is a little finicky. Now, you probably saw these. We might have done this a little bit in 1123. But here is the input mask wizard. Okay. And I can try it out by putting some data in here. And what this shows me is any one of the number of ways I want to put in a phone number, a zip code, an extension. And then it will what will happen is when I apply this, it will show up out there in the record, in each record, and you'll have the mask and you'll have to fill it in. When you've seen those, when you've gone and filled in information, and it's, put in 3 digits for your area code, then 3 for your prefix, 4 for your suffix on your phone number. That's all. Now I'm going to use the phone number here. Okay, and you can click and say try it. Okay, and I'm going to put in my number at work, and notice I've got the 405. Okay. And golly, what is my number? 4418, I think so. Okay. Well, I'm not within the parameters of it. So once 405. Okay. Now I'm ready for the prefix. 585. Okay. And I think I'm 4418. I'd have to look. I don't call myself that often. All right. So I'm going to click next. And this will show me what it's going to look like, and I'll click next. Now, I want you to notice something here. On this last dialog box, it asks us it's an interesting question, and that is, okay, do you want it with the symbols in the mask like this, or do you want it in the mask like this? Okay, now, the default choice is to put that in there as a number, but that's text, okay? And so when we try to treat text like numbers, we have problems. So I would just go ahead and choose this. Now, this without the symbols is easier to cheaper to store, but when you pull the number up, you have a problem. And so we'll click that and click finish. And there you see it. And then I'm going to go back up to the data set view. It's going to ask me to save. I said sure, save table now. And there's my phone number. And when I start to put in the phone number, okay, there's my input mask. That way the data are inputted correctly. The more of those types of devices that you can use, the better off you are, because it cuts down on input error. When you're working with people who aren't very highly motivated, they can really create problems for you unless you really protect table input or form input, so that the form won't save if they don't have a required field, so that things will be in the proper format that you want. Otherwise, it's a long day. So I'm going to close this off. Saw that one. Okay. And you could save that as 7.5. And again, I'm called 7-FIVE. And I'm good. I'll close it off. Now I've spoken a lot about indexing, okay? And the authors spend some time talking about sequences, okay? And a sequence is, as they say, is used to generate numbers sequentially. If that's a tautological definition, I've never heard one. And so what you get is just a straight sequence of numbers. Now, the best way to do that, I'll come up to the departments, okay, and I'm going to that table, I'm going to the design view, is to create, now that we have a department code, okay, and because it's the type of dimension that's what we would call a slowly changing dimension, okay, we don't have to worry about it. But if I have a set of records, because this is a dimension table, if I have a set of records, okay, I probably want to use the auto ID, and I'm going to put the if I come in here and I'll click in here and I can put it into auto number, okay, then I do create kind of a legacy department, but it may be difficult dealing with it down the road because of the auto number. The auto number is just gives you a serial. It's a set of sequences, and they talk about that. You want to use sequences when you're dealing, when you need to make records absolutely positively, when you want to have records that you know how many you've got they are in order. The keys to data integrity really start with sequences and making sure, especially on records, so that each record is unique. And you do that, I think, probably with an auto number. And then you want to add it, and then the second phase of that is making sure everything's entered in a format that makes sense for you. And number 3, if you don't require it, why do you have it in that table? Okay? And so that the table is complete. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of splotchy data, and it's just not worth the time and energy to go through it. Okay. And they walk you through that using sequences in Oracle. And then they talk about index. We've spoken about that quite a bit, okay? And at the bottom page 263, they give you some code, okay, for building an index, okay? And you can see that in the GUI. I'm going to open this foods table open for just a minute, all right? And then we'll go to the design view. And if you scroll down, you'll say, is it indexed? And we say yes, and duplicates are okay. So based on the structure of the data, the machine's going to go search for everything that looks kind of like that and where would be the most likely place. When you've got data indexed, it enables the machine to be very efficient, because it goes at, if it's last names, for example, it knows that there's a bunch up of names and you have very few Z's, and it will just operate on that basis, and it just lets it work a little bit faster. You could have index yes, duplicates no, if you want everything to be original. Okay, and they've left this yes, but they have the duplicates okay, because you'll be buying lots of stuff from the same supplier. That's all about. So we'll close this jewel off, and then over the remainder of chapter 7, they talk about the data dictionary in Oracle, and then they show you the data dictionary in Access, and in the GUI on the design view, you've used it. And you see those field properties, the field name, the data type, and most databases today from the back office view use a GUI of some type. Okay, because everybody knows if there's no point to do all the coding. There's no point when you can just get exactly what you want. And that Access GUI, like on 371, or like you see in any of these, when we go into the design view of a table, it's just basically a template, and we fill out the template like we want. At the end of chapter 7, the author, after he's beat us over the head with Oracle and all the extra work you can do in Oracle if you want, there on page 279, he shows you create a table, okay, called My Days with key events, okay. You create that table, and it's called 0718 My Days, and then you have an alter statement, and then you have an insert, and then you have another insert, and you got another insert, and then you select all of that stuff to get it. And that's 718, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And at the very bottom, it gives you the result table. That, my friends, is a lot of work to do that. And that's definitely when you want to form. But the author wanted to show you that, so if you wanted to program it through. I don't know if I did it in this one or not. Let me see here. I don't think I did, because it was pretty tedious. And there's 72, so 5. No, I don't see the queries. Okay. Too bad. Not really. All right. Now, we're going to look at chapter 8. And so you can keep your SQL open, okay, and then you can upload it, because we're going to do 7, 8, and 9 today. And then what you'll want to do is just take that same database and upload it 3 times. That's the whole idea of a database anyway. And they talk about constraints, okay? And they start with, and we'll just go through this because I think intuitively you should see this. We'll go to the design view. Now, when we talk about constraints, for example, as he shows us there, all right, at the bottom of 284, they have a constraint, and that's on the maximum food price, okay? And you'll see that where he has it circled, and that's 802 food. So I'm going to go up there, and we'll take a look at it. This is a data integrity issue, okay? And I'm going to click on price, okay? And you see the validation text right here, okay? The validation rule, it's got to be less than 10. And then if you put in something 10 or greater, pardon me, if it exceeds 10, then you'll get this message, price exceeds $10. Okay? And that's just simply a constraint that's built in there to say, okay, we don't have anything in here for more than $10. And let's go back up to the data sheet view and look at it, all right? And I think it was at the price increase. Let me look here. for price. Okay, I'm going to come down here and let's say I want to change the price here for dessert. Instead of $3, I'm going to make it $11. And see, I get that warning message. This is the same principle that works when you do a password, okay? Basically the same story. There's a set of constraints that you fall under. You do okay, and we'll just close that. See, it says you can't save the record because it's greater than 10. Then they have some things like defining, walk you through some of the stuff at Oracle. And again, the GUI and Access, which is more like what people would see. You're not going to be seeing this, okay? But you'll have to be mindful of it on the end user piece of things. But if you start to see stuff, if you start to see spotty sets of record, or you start to see stuff that's the same type of data, but it looks like it's been entered differently, something's not right, okay? And here that they've got the not null constraint, okay, at the bottom of 2AG7. And I don't even know if I even ran any queries in this thing because I thought it was just practically so basically so self-evident that it really just wasn't worth messing around. But to show you, so you can see, if you have the great curiosity, go back and do that, and you can run that. But all they have there on page 288, you have the alter table that's in the middle of it. You're going to alter that 0805 employees table. You're going to add the constraint. That's a PK as a primary key. And that primary key will be the employees, okay, field. And the primary key, it says again, enclose the employee ID, end of story. And so that way you make it in that employees table, you make the employee ID the primary key. Now, which would you rather do? Ask yourself, write that all up, or click on the employees, go into design view, and click a little icon and make that a primary key. Well, I'm a lazy slug, so I'm going to take the second. The other reason is all of these iconic views have been created because it's easy to make mistakes. And you could make a mistake on this if you put a constraint in here that you didn't mean to put, or well, if you put in a constraint you really didn't mean to, and then you run that, boom, you've got 50 million records. It's not a good day for you, because you got to recall all that back and then redo it. So it's better off just to do it, use a GUI. This is all just to make it easier for us, so we can focus less on programming and all that kind of thing, and leave that to the professionals who do that and use the data they give us to turn it into information, and then knowledge, and then wisdom. Okay. And page 290 is very, very important. The diagram there shows us this idea of using lookup tables, okay? And it's also called a reference table. And we did a few lookup tables in 1123. And notice what you have here is you have a thing called referential integrity, and that means that the primary key matches a foreign key, okay, embedded in the data table. So you have a lookup table and then the data table, and we did that. We did a few lookup tables, and you're going to find those will be things like states, area codes, who knows, but it's stuff that you want to make sure that it creates a tight fit between the two of them. And also, it's a way for you to create a drop-down menu. Let's take a stab at this for just a minute. And I want to, let's see, I want to put on suppliers. Let's open up suppliers and go to the design view, okay? And I've got the supplier name, all right? And then I could put in something called supplier state, okay? And I'm going to make that short text. In fact, what I'm probably going to do is limit it down to, 2 characters. Why? Because if anyone who you know who can spell Massachusetts consecutively, you run. They've spent too much time alone. Run. Or Mississippi or whatever. So that's why you'd have a table of state abbreviations that would then act like a drop down menu. And we did this in 1123, and what I would do is I would go over here and I'd come down to the I'd do the lookup tab, combo box, and we did this. And we don't have a states we don't have a table here with the two initials for the state, but you'd want that if you wanted to have supplier state. Supplier name would be the same thing. Now I'm going to go back up to the view, and I'm not going to save any table, okay? So I'm not going to save the table at all. So I'm going to go back up here. No, I don't want to save it, so I want to go back up. So be nice with me, okay? I'm going to close the table. No, I don't want to. But I'm going to go back over here, and let me close the employee table for a minute, okay? And we'll just go over here. Oh, employees. All right. And if I wanted to create the drop down menu, and we've done this, you just create a little table, and then you click on lookup, and then I use a combo box to get so that I have a drop down menu. Okay. And you'll notice tonight when we were out looking at those databases, they all had drop down menus and then a sub drop down from them. You said, well, what do you mean? Well, let me show you here for just a second so you can see the practicality of it. Back to the data modules. All right. And we'll come down here. All right, 8. This one's put together quite well. We'll go over here and we'll see what I'm talking about. You're used to seeing this. I come over here in IMA. Okay. And I might have some sub drop downs, but what they basically have is when you invoke that IMA, it runs a little query for you to enter whatever you are. Then your focus, you get involved, resources. That's the whole basic idea of that. Now, I'll go back here. The chapter 8, they give us an example of referential integrity. Okay, let's look at the top of page 292. Okay, now we're going to alter table SEC 0808 underscore clients, and we're going to add a constraint that's a foreign key, a key that's a primary key in another table, and that would be the client's state code, and then a foreign key will make a state code, and then we're going to have the references with the state code, and they show us that states SEC 0808 states table, okay, and then the result set of the clients. Now, I'm going to go back over here for a minute, and I'm through 7, and let's open up 8. Some of these chapters are more conceptual than they are just a lot of coding and plotting through. And this one's going to be 8. Shit, let's see. We're going to alter the table. Now, I don't know if we had to create that 08 underscore clients table or not. If we did, it's going to give us some trouble. Okay. And click create. And we may not have created it, we may have done it, but the logic of it is we can always talk about that. Let's see what I get here. Can't find, okay. We hadn't created the table yet. Okay, that's fair enough. All righty. Okay. Well, let's walk through the logic of it at least, because I don't want to. Thank you. Jumbled on my screen. Yeah, I understand. I couldn't find the table. It's a problem. All right. We're going to alter the table, and we hadn't created this table. Let's assume that we did, and we're going to add a constraint, which is a foreign key, and that's from that table we'd created, the 0808 clients state code. Okay, and then we have a foreign key. We invoke that, and it's the state code. And then we're going to have references from that, and that it references about the state code over there in that 0808 underscore states. Okay, and so they show you, and you can really see the logic of it. The beginning lookup table, you'll see the state code. Okay, and you can see the state code up here in the SQL inside the parentheses. Okay, and then we've got the state name. Okay, and let's see if we've got the state code as a foreign key, so we're not messing with the state name. And then we have the state capital, so we're not messing with that. So we're leaving those alone, but then we're gonna get our data table created, okay, from the lookup table, and we're gonna insert that client ID, that client name, and the state code. Okay.
I'm not really. So we say add constraint, and then we say the constraint for the foreign key.
Yeah.
And then we say it again in different words. Why do we say it again?
Because the machine is stupid. You're smarter than it. That's really the truth. Okay. And now, how would you do this easier? You'd go into that table and you would go into the GUI and you'd find that field and you'd do a lookup table for it. And if you had a lookup table, if you look there in middle of page 292, you see the lookup table. All that table is used for is to pull up any one or all 3 of those records, entries, and they're all linked together. California, Sacramento. Okay, so it's always, you can run the query if you've created that table, it'll work in all that business. But the truth is, today most folks are going to go in and build a lookup query. They're going to build a lookup table, so when you come in, you can choose one of the following. Just like when we went over there for a minute ago and said, I am a pastor. Okay, well, we've invoked a lookup table off that. Now we can't go in and see it because it's been thrown out into the web and into a database management program. And the folks over in computer science are in database management, which is programming the stuff into a website, web page or website, or into, say, a shopping client of some kind. Our end is to say, do we have the data that makes sense? All right, and do I understand the ramifications if I ask for some type of change in those tables or whatever? And then where you'll really have, and you're also going to have a leg up on a lot of the other students are out there that look for a job, because you've worked with this, you've seen the code, you've seen the GUI, you understand that. So it doesn't befuddle you. trust me, there are a lot of students that graduate from business schools. They don't know anything at all about databases. But databases now are becoming, they're kind of ascending in terms of their importance and their use, because we have more data about everything, than we've ever could have imagined. So if you can at least look at it and see it, you're much better off. Now, page 291, we get some error messages, and the whole point of the authors in the middle there is if you put here we put in a value, which would be an employee ID. We put in an employee's name, and then we put in New York. Unfortunately, New York's not in my lookup table. Neither is Massachusetts. Okay, we've got California, Oregon, and Washington. So clearly, those are Pac-12 states that are against anybody on the East Coast. I don't know, but it's just saying if it's not in there, it's going to give an error message. So it's like I said, there's not that much, coding to do. It's more just kind of seeing it and kind of understanding it. No. Page 294, chapter 8, they walk you through inserts and updates. I get more reason you would use a form. And the top of page 296, the same story. They're old school. Now, look, you won't hurt my feelings if you want to go in here and write all this. If you want to go write all the code, be my guest. If you don't have anything better to do, I would question, what you are doing with your life. And again, the author's old school, and he wants to show you the code. I'm kind of old school, but also new school, and I would pretty much say, I want an iconic display where I can just drag or drop. I worked at the DOS level. I worked below the DOS level. I worked with Hall Earth cards, and I'm living well. And it's like one day I asked my granddad, I said, what was it like in the good old days? And he said, what was good about them? I didn't have any air conditioning. Took me a day to get to the doctor on a horse. There's nothing good about that. I thought, okay. Progress has its merits. So, it wasn't necessarily a simpler, gentler time. If you had a bad tooth, maybe your parents have told you this. You know how you got rid of it. You didn't go to the dentist. You didn't get a shot of Novocaine. No, sir. You took that puppy and you tied it to a piece of string. You tied it to a door and you kicked the door closed. That's how dentistry was practiced. And I want to say this, I'm a doctor, so anyone here would need any of that work, or there are several of us here on this floor, so you ever need an operation, anything, we're fully happy to help out. No, I'm just kidding. I used to, when I used to fly around a lot, and I guess I was in my early 30s, and I'd get a airline attendant. As the times changed, it changed from just one gender to another. But the place I worked for always put me in as Dr. Harmon. So guess where I ended up? Right by the emergency thing. So suddenly I'm responsible for 150 people, and I'd have to tell the school, don't put that. And invariably, someone would come back and say, what type of doctor are you? And and kind of after a while, I started saying, well, I'm a proctologist, or and that was my standard answer. Or I'm a doctor of love. What can I say? But I got tired of it because they'd say, doctor, and they put me right in that emergency thing. I did not want to be there. Now the one advantage is I thought, okay, I'd be the first off. So if I leave everybody in the confusion, will they find out? I don't know. So, I am not a nice person, I guess, when it comes to things like that. Yeah, I am. I would stay in there till the last person got them out. Maybe. But let's see. Over on page 300, they start to talk about relating tables to another. Okay. Now, I'm going to open up the SQL here, all right, and I'll click on Database Tools, okay, and then click on Relationships. And you're going to see, as he begins to talk about this, the whole idea of relationships. And you remember we talked about the schema. Is it a snowflake? Is it a star? All right. And this looks suspiciously to me like a snowflake because I don't have any one table where everybody fills in. And listen, to get this view, okay, took a lot of coding and to show us how these are all connected. Once you've got this worked out and you can see where everybody's coming in from, you can see the one-to-many relationships, the one-to-one relationships, you can see the data flow, okay? And we've done this before. It's a simple matter. If I want to put, if I want to create a relationship, i.e., well, here we have supplier ID, and I'll show you, and we have supplier ID as the primary key. So supplier ID here in lunch items is what we would call a foreign key. Okay, and I'm going to click on that little bitty line. We've done this before. Edit the relationship. And you're going to see the edit relationship dialog that will tell us what's the table or the query and what's related to it, the parent and child, the fields involved. Okay, and if we want to enforce that, we can. Cascading means if I want to cascade, I want to update one field in that record with that key, everything will update, or delete everything in a cascade. Now, I'm going to click on here and we'll talk about the join types, and you'll see number one is include where they match, okay? And so you're looking at everything where the two fields match up, and that's an intersection. Now you're going to have another type of intersection, but one which is where you have the parent, okay, or the left-hand table, if you will, or set. I want all of those records, and then I want only the ones that match on the one from the right side. And of course, then a right join would be everything on the right-hand side, okay, or the child, and whatever matches with what's in the parent. So I've got 1 and 3, and we'll see these as we get into some later chapters and the strategies for using them, okay? So it's not that big of a deal, but they want to talk about, you know, how to do that. You've already done that. You've related one thing to the other, and they show you over there on page 301, 302. And again, you're able to look at, see if it's a one-to-many, you know, or a many-to-one, but most of the time it's going to be a one-to-many relationship. And we have a lot of stuff funneling into the lunch items. Okay. And you can just, it kind of starts unchannel like spaghetti. Yes?
What's I'm forgetting, what is the infinity sign on some of these?
This means, for example, suppliers. Okay, look at the link between suppliers and the supplier ID and the foods. What that means is I can have an infinite number of suppliers shown in the foods table. Or I can, and so I've got a supplier ID, or I can have this, if I have 5 suppliers, it doesn't matter how many times each one is referenced, it's referenced. That makes sense? It's a one-to-many relationship. So I send you 1 shipment, I send you 2 shipments, how many ever I sell you. See? Okay, that's all that's going on there. But it does imply something. It implies, you know, that one bit of data feeds in and flows to another. Okay, and this foods, it is kind of starts to look like a star table, but it is kind of you just have to mess around with it. And this is a nice little feature of Access. Other database clients have these types of features. Here's the department code. Okay, and look at it. And it goes 1 to infinity or 1 to many, okay? And that means I have, as employees, I can have any number of employees who work in Department 1 or Department 2 or 3 or 1, 2, and 3. That makes sense? That's all that it's about. That's all that it's about. Okay. Now, since we're over here, put no. I'm going to click on database tools again, and we want to click on object dependencies. All right. I'm going to turn this query off for a minute, and I'm going to click on, let's see here. If I'm going to report, I'm going to click on 2.2. Okay. I don't want that. I want the database tools, and I want the object dependencies. Now, you're saying, what are you talking about? Well, one of the tools the database will show me the flow of data. And it will show me the objects that depend on me. Typically, a table is going to have a whole bunch of queries and reports dependent on it because it calls data from them. So you want to see that so you can understand how that's put together. Or objects that I depend on, and you can see this query depends on the employees table. So it gives you a sense of how the data flows. Okay? It's good for troubleshooting. It's good just to kind of see the logical sequence of what's going on. And again, when you build tables, when you start out and you build, and we talked about this when we did the data warehouses. When I work with a data warehouse, I start out with the dimensions, and then I get fact tables that get created, and then I do reports off of the queries, and I'm up and running. And so I want to be able to see where did this come from? What's it dependent on? Now I'm going to open it up in Design View, and you'll see that. And we've got it, and we've got it from the employees table, and there it is. And you can see it in the code, and then you can see it in this GUI report. Yeah.
So, for example, the objects that I depend on, would that always appear under the front, or are there other places in SQL that could potentially appear?
Are you talking about this tool?
Yeah.
No, it's up here in the database tools section. Am I making sense? Did I answer your question? Yeah. If I want, okay, all right, I won't see it if I go in and I look at, if I go into the database tools and I click relationships, I'm just going to see relationships between tables. Yeah, but over here, if I want to see the object dependencies, it will tell me this query 2.2, and I'll put it up here in the data view, is based on employees table. Right. Okay, and then objects that depend on me. Okay, they have all these unsupported objects that may or may not be linked in with me. But I would say what you're probably looking at right there is it's telling you here are some other objects that are like yours, but they're not supported by you. They may be supported by the table. That just lets us see that the table is always the beginning point for everything, because that's where the data are stored, and then we pull it out. Make sense? Hopefully, it will. Okay. In chapter 8, over on page 306 and 307, they show you the relationships dialog box that I showed everybody. Okay. And they show you doing a cascade delete, and where you could choose that. Okay. And what that will do is that will get rid of any records between the two of them, or we could do a cascade update. You do not want the cascade delete has been invoked by people whose employer probably, well, they disappeared and never came back. Because you got to understand something, you may create some real problems. So if you're going to have archival data in tables as opposed to an active table, you probably need to make copies of those tables, hide them somewhere, and then go ahead and do your cascade. Yeah. And in the middle of 307, you'll see they're going to delete from the states table anywhere where it says the code says the state code is California, okay? And they're going to pop down here and give us these client tables. The beginning table, it's the bottom page 207 and 308. And you'll see the ending table, there is no more. California's gone. We've eliminated it. And that might be if somebody stops doing business with us, something of that nature. If it's a change of name or whatever, that becomes a whole different kind of critter. Chapter 8 is just some more about the lookup data, using constraints. And chapter 8 ends with a whole bunch of key points, okay? And here's what I'm going to say, and it's this. If you're working with a database, okay, I'm going to close this off. I'll close this. And you're, let's say you need to create your own database for some reason, and my prayer is you will not. You'll want to go to the table design view, okay? And you're going to want to carefully think about what characteristics, dimensions, variables, etc. do I need to have in here, okay? And that makes you think about what's important, and that could, you know, the client ID, their phone number, blah, blah. And again, once you input that data, then you want to deal with whatever general properties and data types. And there's the folks in computer science teach have a course on data structure that walks you through all of this. The key is the table. The query, you know, a query is just like what I did to my dad one time. My dad I was working for him in one of his stores, and he said, you know, make sure you empty the garbage cans, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. Well, you know, I was like 10 or 11 years old. I wasn't very discerning. And so I didn't open the cans up to make sure they were garbage. So I took one can out and just threw it in the incinerator. Well, it happened to be all of the letters for a new neon sign, which is about $3,000. So I'm sure my father said, well, he'll be 83 before I get that out of his. So he just looked at me and said, but I learned a hard lesson about being careful. And so when you build these tables, you want to be mindful of it. And what I really recommend you do, or if you go to work for somebody, and they will, if they're a large enough company, they will probably have a manual that will show you all of the fields, what's in them, everything, so you can understand what you're going after when you query it. Now, that may not be absolutely the case. You may just have an interface that's at a low level. But as you move up, you'll want to decide these kinds of things. What is it I want to collect? And that's the whole point there with data integrity, is you collect the data that you need to get and no more. You put it into a format or data type that stores it as efficiently as possible. Okay, you use lookup tables, input masks, any device you can to control how the data are inputted, and then you've done what you can do. At that point, you know, the rest is up to the good Lord and what happens with employees. Now, We're at 7:21. And so let's do this. Take what we worked on tonight, save it on your machine, and then upload it for Lunch's database 7 and 8. Okay, with me? Now, the next thing we'll do is we're going to look at next week before we go on spring break. We're going to look at row functions, and those are too important to try to slough through them at this point in this time of night. And you may want to, just to kind of help you as you come in, for some context, you may want to just breeze through chapter 9, take a look at it, read it, and we're going to see row functions. And what we're doing is we're moving from the point where we're running queries, we look at data integrity and creating tables, to now we're using functions that allow us to summarize, i.e. aggregate data, okay? And what you're going to find out is what I've said many, many times, let a database be a database, let a spreadsheet be a spreadsheet, because you're going to see we can do some data, we can do some mathematical computation here, but it's really not designed to do that. The ideal situation is to have very well constructed tables, and then run a good query, and then export it over to a spreadsheet client like Excel. And that's the smartest way, I think, to do all of this. And I think probably most anybody who's out there working would say, yeah, that's what I would do, especially working with large numbers of records and using Excel to do what it does best. Although it has some of those functions we saw, you can use a pivot table to do some things, but if you have to do some heavy lifting computationally, you really want it out there. So you just want the table collected here so you can export the data. Or on the other hand, if you have some data in Excel, you may want to throw it in here. So we're going to look at row functions, okay, and what they do for us. And you'll see the introductory pages there in chapter 9 about what a row function is, the purpose of it. And then once we've done row functions in chapter 9, okay, and I know this will be a shocking surprise. I bet you can figure out what chapter 10 is about. And oh boy, more on date functions. Love those dates. We're gonna use those row functions. This chat 9 introduces you to them. Then we use them, okay, and then we'll begin to work on columns. And the last piece of this is where the last piece of the course. We'll be doing some cross tabulation, and then we'll start combining tables and stringing tables together and then running queries on them. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll come back next week. Now this is what we worked on tonight. Save it and load it into Lunch's database 7 and 8. Okay, and oops, okay, just a second here. A couple of people raised their hands. Let me see it. Well,
Norman?
Yeah.
Hey, are you going to post number 9 this weekend?
No, next week we'll work on number 9.
Okay.
Yeah. This week just post 7 and 8, and then number 9. Yeah, your voice kind of sounds cool that way, like you're going to give us the 10 Commandments or something. I like it.
Dr. Harmon?
Yeah.
This is Robert. I'm with Houston.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So for the Access database, did you work on the one with Lunch's DB7, or did you do SQL Fun?
I don't care. Either one is fine.
Okay. Because I was working with Lunch's database 7 at first, and then I think you may have opened up an, and so I'm going to transfer all what I worked on, like the queries we did, onto the other one and upload it.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, folks. Thank you so much. And that's kind of cool. Dr. Harmon, sound like the voice of God. I know. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, all righty. Enough of that frivolity. And we'll stop the share, and then we'll end the recording.